Does a wage gap between the sexes really exist in 2016? And is wage transparency really the solution? The Shadow Minister for Women and Equalities joins us tonight as Britain talks. Hello and welcome to Britain Talks. David Cameron says that forcing businesses to publish the average wage of their male and female employees is what he describes as a really big move in tackling the wage gap and bringing equality to the workplace. However, some business groups argue that this legislation will only bring what they describe as myths and confusion to business.
On average, women are paid 21% less than men.
But I don't believe in quotas.
We can ask for the same exact thing as that men do. And we do face the reality that we do get judged more.
The number of female-owned businesses is steadily increasing. It is claimed that this move will get more women involved in high-paying jobs and boost the economy by 35%. However, with 19.1%, the UK has one of the highest wage gaps in Europe. They currently make up 95% of secretaries and 94% of childcare assistants, but only 13% of architects and 7% of engineers. There are fears that women are not well represented within high-paying jobs, and as a potential solution to the problem, quotas have been suggested. But is it the answer?
There's already significant differences between men and women in the top jobs, so I think until we get an equal level of men and women, it would definitely help if there was quotas for women.
Yeah, I think quotas should be if they should be introduced at all, it should be a very temporary thing.
I mean, equality is coming along, including in pay, but there's still obviously a big gap.
Your main claim is about the gender pay gap, that actually that is a myth.
The reality is that women do prefer a more balanced life. Women make different life choices.
Tampons and sanitary pads.
They're considered a luxury.
That isn't by accident, that's by design of an unequal society in which the concerns of women are not treated as equally as the concerns of men.
And we're committed to getting the EU to change its rule.
We want to end gender inequality.
At the end of the day, we're all human beings, we all have urges, we all have feelings, we all have emotions, and why should that differ the amount they're paid, what women can achieve in terms of men? I think it's just no question.
It's just something that is intrinsic, and I would love to see change.
So, will transparency help women in their careers, and will it also improve businesses? Well, today I'm joined by Mike Buchanan, leader of the Justice for Men and Boys Party, and Kate Green, Shadow Minister for Women and Equalities. Now then, a law coming into effect this year will force companies with over 250 employees to reveal the average wages of their male and female employees. So first, Kate, what do you think about that proposal?
Well, it's a proposal that actually Labour first legislated for. We left the law on the statute book when we left government in 2010. So it's a bit concerning that it's taken the Conservatives so long to actually put it into action. But it's welcome. We do have, as we've just seen, a gender pay gap in this country of around 19%. And we're certainly hopeful that by shining a light on companies' pay practices and the distribution of pay between women and men in businesses, that will encourage bosses to look at the way in which their pay structures actually operate and to address any disadvantage that may exist in their workplaces.
On a technical note, Nick Clegg in 2015 secured an amendment, didn't he, which would mean businesses would need to make changes if there are wage differences within 12 months, but Parliament actually voted against that.
Yes, I think that's regrettable because I think we do need to go further than simply just having, very bland reporting. We need to make sure that the information is public, that it's usable, that, union reps or employees can see it. We need to make sure it's consistent so you can compare one business to another. And we need to make sure that it's systematic, that it's collected on the same basis year after year. But most importantly, we need to use it. Now, if businesses are not prepared to explain what they're going to do to reduce the gender pay gap where it exists, then I think we will have to look again at the need for tougher legislation.
You don't think there is a gender pay gap, do you?
There's no gender pay gap at all between the ages of 18 and 40. The pay gap starts at 40 and upwards. And you have to ask, why exactly is it that the patriarchy pays women the same as men up to 40 and less afterwards? The whole feminist narrative on the gender pay gap is nonsensical.
But is this really feminism? This is equality, isn't it? It's a different thing.
Well, yes, I mean, feminism is a gender supremacy movement, so...
and this isn't about that. This is about equality.
It's never about equality. It's all about advantaging women. Feminism is about advantaging women.
It's got nothing to do with
gender. It's not. The reasons why the gender gap exists at all has been known for decades. It's been known that women go into different lines of work. Right from the end of finishing full-time education, females are less likely to engage in employment and far more likely than men to work part-time.
Because they're not given the same chances that men are.
No, they are given all the same chances. The main reason is one of work ethic. And Dr. Catherine Hakim, a world-renowned sociologist, published a paper in 2000 on what she called preference theory. And her research showed that while 4 in 7 British men are work-centred, only 1 in 7 British women is work-centred.
Women want
more balance in their lives.
That's not a work ethic. It's a number of things, including, as Mike rightly identifies, that women will have to balance caring, parenting responsibilities to a different extent often than men. But it's also the result of the way in which certain career choices are influenced by teachers. We know from the CBI's research that teachers do tend to advise girls to go down traditional female employment routes. It's also to do with, if you look at a workplace where women are very underrepresented, you may feel that you're not going to be very welcome in that workplace. That's why really proactive steps, for example, in the engineering sector to draw women in are very, very welcome.
This is in the engineering sector. Very much like it. Well, yeah, just 1 second. 80% of people in STEM sectors are men. Instead of why are women not encouraged to go into that?
Women are encouraged. £30 million is being spent by the government in encouraging women into engineering. So at Brunel University today, female MSc students are getting £23,000 denied to their male colleagues. Now, how is that anything to do?
I don't think they're getting it personally. I think it's a grant to the university for taking female students.
No, it's not. The money goes to them, Kate.
I'd be very interested to see that because I've not heard that before.
Okay.
But we do need to incentivise universities to draw women into these courses because they do lead to well-paid jobs, and it's good for families, good for our economy to be making the best use of everybody's talents.
Do you think
and if we're not drawing women with all these skills into these very important sectors for our economy, then we're naturally holding our country back.
70% of medical students are women.
Indeed.
Should we be reducing that?
I don't think we're talking about seeking to reduce or increase in sectors where we're not concerned about a significant mismatch of representation. But in sectors like science and engineering, there's a huge mismatch. As you see, 80%
because girls don't want to go into that.
Are not driven towards choosing it, I accept, but we need to look at what is influencing those choices that women are making.
Let's just get it back on track. Let's talk about transparency as a mechanism, which is why we're sitting here. Do you think that this kind of transparency, which I suspect you probably welcome, might breed resentment between employees?
Well, I not only welcome it, as I say, it was Labour who legislated. My party introduced this particular piece of legislation shortly before we left government in 2010. So I do welcome it. I don't think it should be an instrument for resentment. It should be about ensuring that businesses, employers, are driven to examine their practices and to make sure that they're fair to all their workers, and to link that, I would say, to improving their own productivity and business success.
In no doubt your search for meritocracy, which I always imagine is part of your standpoint as well, surely transparency will help, won't it?
But it will tell you nothing about, I mean, in a given company, and these are big companies we're talking about in the main, this is not comparing like with like, it's just taking one figure for women and one figure for men. It says nothing about seniority, it says nothing about line of work. Which is just ridiculous.
Well, I agree with Mike, and that is additional information that I would like to see published too. Because you're right, an overall figure may tell us very little. It may not tell us very much, for example, about the job grades that women and men reach. It may not tell us very much about which jobs in the business they are taking. Some maybe you may see a concentration of women in the clerical jobs and men in the managerial jobs, for example. And the question I would be asking is, as an employer, overall, the information may not tell me very much, but drilling down into the detail should enable me to look at the way in which I'm making best use of the talent in my business.
The CBI chimes in with you, Mike. It says that this data would not really say a great deal. It is clumsy data.
It is designed to create resentment. That's its entire purpose. And we have to look, just more broadly, the idea of, if you like, advantaging or advancing women, it's been known for some years now, and I presented this evidence to House of Commons and House of Lords inquiries, that there's undoubtedly a causal link between increasing the proportion of women on corporate boards and corporate financial decline. That is absolutely black and white.
I've seen contrary evidence.
You haven't. What you might have seen, Kate, is correlation. Correlation is not causation.
I don't think you'll be able to show causality because it would be extremely...
We have 5 longitudinal studies.
So are you able to show the decisions that those women directors made that damaged the business? No, that would be causality.
No, causality would be in Norway, for example, where 3 of the studies relate to. There's a very clear causal link with corporate financial decline. So
it's not the evidence of the UK.
Well, we don't have those. We don't have those figures in front of us. Let's just move on with transparency, and let's also move on to the role of women. I know you get this asked all the time because that's your job in a sense. But there is an argument, is there not, to say that women actually do run families better and should be doing that rather than pursuing major careers. And if that is true, I don't know whether it is not, a lot of them actually feel that, and that's why you don't get this level of achievement above the age of 40.
I don't think we have evidence that women run families better. We want both parents, men and women, fathers and mothers, equally engaged in their children's upbringing. And many, in fact, almost all parents will say that too. Fathers very much say that they would like to have more chance to spend time with and being with their children. What we also know is that for very young children, in the first year or so of life, they will benefit. The child's well-being, which should be our primary concern, will be best served by having a predominant relationship with one carer. And usually that will be the mother, not least for biological reasons. You know, the mother is likely to be feeding the child in the early months. So I think we recognise that there are biological determinants of some elements of our family and career structures. But there's very considerable evidence that the disadvantage women experience in the workplace, not least because of their commitments to their family, but also the disadvantage men may face where they make commitments to their family, is something that we need to address. Yeah. And that goes back, I think, to the very interesting point Mike made at the beginning of our discussions about the pay gap for younger women is, as he says, pretty well being eliminated. Not completely. You will see, for example, female graduates 10 years after graduation are still paid less than men. But certainly that gap is narrowing, and I think that's welcome. What you see when women become mothers is that they do start to suffer serious labour market disadvantage, sometimes by choice, but often not.
Mike, would you see any advantage to business in this? I mean, in this kind of transparency, which shows that businesses actually are getting up to date with the issues of equality?
No, it's a feminist-driven. I mean, this is just to create grievances, and we will also have something that will come out of this. Will be the farce of equal pay for equal work. So some body decides that this type of work is equivalent to this type of work, and 99 times out of 100, that is to raise women's incomes.
Kate, what advantages are there to business with this transparency? Because that's key to this, isn't it? If you can put your finger on that, then there is a proper debate to be had.
Well, I think that any business will, as I say, want to make the most of the talent that is available to it in its workforce, and it will want to attract the best talent so that it can be successful, productive, competitive, outdo its competitors. And if you are discouraging or disincentivizing women through pay structures that mean that there isn't the attraction of doing well in the company or joining the company, then you are throwing away that talent, that capacity to make maximum contribution to the business. Most businesses I have talked to will say a diverse workforce is a stronger workforce. You represent different customer experiences better. Women and men work well together. They sometimes bring different strengths, skills and approaches, and that's really welcome in a business. I think our pay structures need to reward and reflect
Mike,
that.
10 seconds. Are you still against this kind of move for equality?
Very much so. There is no evidence whatsoever that men are paid more than women for the same line of work. None.
Thank you both very much indeed. That's all we have time for, I'm afraid. And very special thanks to our guests, Kate Green and Mike Buchanan. Don't forget you can continue the discussion on Twitter using the hashtag #BritainTalksTransparency. Next week, as Britain lets in 10,000 refugees past its borders each year, what does that mean for Britain as we know it, and what should Britain be doing about it? Thanks so much for tuning in.